Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. Delighted to be here with you and to mostly listen to you, and then inshallah we shall see what we can do with regard to writing. What I suggested was that the best way to go about this is for me to respond to your questions. So send me your questions and inshallah we will take the discussion from there. I hope this will be beneficial inshallah. So waiting for your questions. Okay. All right, I'm going to repeat the question for the benefit of everyone and then I'll answer it. Now the question is from Zahid. How can I tackle writing and a busy schedule? By prioritizing. It's as simple as that. You decide what is more important for you and take out from your busy schedule things that are not that important as writing and use that time for writing. Number one. Number two is, depending on how you use your time, how many hours a day you sleep and so on, there can be quite a significant saving from there where you can take out that time. So you need to sleep less than what you sleep now, depending on how much you on how much you sleep. So these are the two things. So I tell people, be clear about what you want to, which is important for you. If it's important for you, if it's important enough, it will happen. And that is the thing to do, sit down and say, what is more important in my schedule? And then change that schedule. Question number two, what to do when a deadline for an article is coming near, but I feel totally demotivated and experience writer's block. I believe that writer's block is a figment of the imagination. There's no such thing. When you write, it is the discipline of writing, which is that if you want to define yourself as a writer and if you want to write, then you must set aside a time of the day and a period where you get up and you start writing. So that's, say, an hour a day, for example, from 9 to 10 a.m. Then at 9 a.m. you sit and you start writing. You just write whatever is in your mind, you write, whether it's part of the article, not part of the article, whatnot. You make sure that you are writing because that is your job. You are a writer, so you're going to write. So make sure that you do that. That is very important to do. Otherwise, we get into all of this stuff about writer's block and so on. As far as demotivated is concerned, that's a call you need to take. If it is something that you really don't want to write about, then don't write about it. The thing has to come from the heart. If you are to write well, it has to come from the heart, and it will not come from the heart if you are feeling demotivated about that. So it is very important to ask yourself, am I really interested in this thing? Do I really have something to say? Reflection plays a huge part in good writing. So take the question that you are going to write about, the topic that you're going to write about, which is the topic of the article. Reflect on it, think about it. I strongly recommend you pray tahajjud and you make dua and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you inspiration. And that's not necessarily for religious things, I mean for everything. You ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give inspiration for you to do the right thing. And then you write. But if you are in the spot where, and it's quite possible, I mean, not everybody is interested in everything. So if you are in this place where you now feel completely and totally demotivated, I'm sorry, I don't want to write about this thing, then say it in so many words and don't write about it. Don't waste your time trying to do it because it won't happen. Then question number three, how do I organize my thought to begin writing a book that I've been trying to start for some months now? My thoughts are scattered, thinking about everything I would like to write at the same time. First and foremost is stop thinking and start writing. So write down those thoughts. Let them be scattered, let them be random thoughts, but write them down, put them down. Write 200 pages of thoughts. Just write them down as they come to you. Thanks to our modern systems, word processing and so on, doing things later with that data is much easier. So just write those things down, number one. Number two is then think about it and say, what is the central theme of this book that you want to write? What is the message that you want to convey? What is the core thing that inspires you, that drives you and so on? that you want to write, and then organize those thoughts around those things. But first of all, you need to write those thoughts down. So that is very important. How do I? No, before that, there's some other question. Yeah, there is Madi Arana. Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam. When is the best time to write, and how much do you write daily? Best time to write is now. How much do I write daily? Well, that depends on what I'm writing. Right now, I'm not writing anything because 2 of my books are now in process. One is the next book of khutbahs, which is in process, and another one is a book on education, and I'm still in the process of researching that and reflecting on it. So I'm not writing. Just now I'm not writing, but when I write, I usually write 6 hours, 8 hours a day. So I mean that much. When I start writing, I write, and so I write a lot. But then I do a lot of research before that, and that's one of the things to do is do a lot of reading, do a lot of research, talk to people. It's just your thoughts alone are not enough, and because thoughts also get channeled by what you hear and see and so on. So apart from thoughts is also to think about what else do I need to have in mind, in hand before we come to the actual task of writing. How do I get over the fear of wondering if I will be able to write enough for a book? I fear I may run out of words and therefore not be able to fulfill my dream of writing a book. Well, as long as you keep sitting and wondering, you are never going to write the book. Simple as that. So start writing and stop wondering, and you will know whether you have enough words or not. And if you don't have enough words, the words will come. So just write down your thoughts and think about your central theme and organize your thoughts around that, and then inshallah the words will come as necessary. Mama Zaid, to what extent should we alter our natural writing style to appeal to the audience? I don't think you should alter it at all. That does not mean write ungrammatically. That does not mean write as if you are writing an SMS message or something. No. Proper grammar, proper punctuation, proper sentences, all of these are very important. But other than that, I do not believe in pandering to audiences. You write what's in your heart, you write it in the way that is your signature, and you will find people are there who will appreciate it. One very important thing to understand is never run behind popularity, because no matter what you do, there will be some people who like it and some people who don't like it, and really doesn't matter. It's like selling, whether you're selling Hyundais or Rolls Royces, both have markets. So very clearly, write what comes from your heart, and so you will also enjoy doing that work, and plus it will, what comes from the heart has effect. These days, sensational and humorous articles do much better than serious ones. Once again, the same thing. Don't worry about how it does and so on. All of this is putting the cart before the horse. Horses can't push, they can only pull. So don't do that. Your humor also must be something which comes naturally to you. It must not be forced. And trying to write a humorous article is a good way of making sure that it's not humorous. So just write what's in your heart. Make sure that what you're saying comes from where you live, and it is, as I said earlier, it must be correct in a technical way, which means that you must not have grammatical mistakes and so on. This is one of the big problems with a lot of people who write today, which is that they write things which have grammatical mistakes, which have spelling mistakes. There's nothing more disastrous for writing than to have spelling mistakes and grammatical mistakes, and it's so easy to correct both. We have the tools to do that, so please do that. Another very, very important thing is to check what you have written again, proofread what you have written again. Absolutely essential. No matter how well you write, no matter how much of experience you have, it is very important to proofread what you have written. So once you have written something, then read it again and again and again. I don't even keep track of how many times I read what I write. Easily more than 5 or 6 times, maybe more than that. But it's very important to do that. And also, as far as the book is concerned, get yourself, once the book is in your opinion ready for publication, get yourself a good editor before you send it to a publisher. Get yourself a good editor who knows what he or she is doing, who knows the technology behind editing, and then listen to them. Don't argue with editors unless they are telling you, something which really doesn't agree with your principles. But other than that, arguing with editors is useless, because if you got an editor, then listen to them. How do I overcome the worry of writing something already done and not produce something monotonous? Again, as I said, write what is in your heart. More than likely, what you are write is going to be something somebody somewhere would have written that. So it's not everything is completely unique, and it doesn't matter, because even if somebody has written something earlier, it doesn't mean that you can't write it. It doesn't mean that you don't have a different angle to it. It doesn't mean that your experience has no meaning just because somebody wrote something about it. Take absolutely any subject. How many books are there on cooking, for example? How many books are there on leadership? How many books are there on riding horses? I mean, take any topic in the world and you will have a zillion books on it. They're all there. They all sell at whatever level. So it's not don't get stuck in this issue of trying to be unique. If you become unique, alhamdulillah, good for you. But the point is that it's not necessary. It is... even if it's done already, you would have an angle on it. As far as monotonous is concerned, as I said, that comes from your own writing style. If you write enough, the whole issue of practice, it is important to write and to write and to write and write and write, and that's how you get practice. Unless you practice, I think the first book I wrote was in 1990. So I've been writing for a number of years now. So I think this is important, that you should write, you should practice. And I'm talking about the first book I wrote, not the first article I wrote. So the first article I wrote was earlier than that. So it's very important. Once you do that, then you will realize if it's monotonous. Proofreading will help you. Your audience will help you. Find some long-suffering friend, and that's where you realize who is truly your friend, and ask them to give you feedback on your writing. And if they tell you that it's lousy, then believe them. Don't argue with them, right? Because it is lousy. So if it's lousy to the person, it doesn't matter how much you love it, junk it, write again. How do I overcome fear of failure? You overcome fear of failure by trying again and again and again. Now, this is one classic. I don't know this question. How do I overcome fear of failure? Now, this is a typical kind of thing that happens in writing. Spell check. Check what you're writing. That sentence is grammatically incorrect. So make sure that you are writing and that you're writing things which are grammatically correct. How to overcome fear of failure? Just keep doing it. If you have enough practice, then you will be able to succeed. There's a wonderful book by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers. Read that book, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. He talks about the 10,000 hour rule. Now, that is very, very critical. Malcolm Gladwell ki kitab ko reference, and then also the other one, which is what is that? He talks about thoughtful practice. You know that, right? Yeah. So do that. Now, then next question is: people nowadays have very short attention spans with the social media boom of vines. How can our writing compete with such stuff? You don't compete. Why do you compete? I mean, there's no need to compete with such stuff, right? There will always be people who are thoughtful, who are interested, who will write, and who will read what you write. And these are the people who are your audience. Your audience is not the people who are competing with goldfish with regard to attention spans. They're not your audience. Forget about them. If somebody does not have, people tell me this all the time. They say, oh, you must make these 1-minute videos. I don't make any 1-minute videos. If you are interested in listening to something serious, come and sit and listen. If you're not interested, goodbye. It doesn't matter. So forget about competing with all this social media rubbish. Social media is social engineering, which is designed to take the passion out of your life. So forget about social media. Get out of all social media, frankly, if you ask me. I'm not on any of them. And doesn't harm me at all whatsoever. So the important thing is you write what is in your heart. You write what you believe is important. You write it in the best way that you know how to write, and keep on improving by taking feedback and by your own proofreading and so on. And forget about competing with social media and so on and so forth. Right? Inshallah, you will become popular. People who are serious will read, and people who will enjoy your reading will read you, and you will have a following. And you're doing it for the for your happiness, inshallah. You mentioned about researching. What's the best way to research about a topic before writing about it? Oh man, make bayah on Sheikh Google's hand. One of the best ways to research is Google, in fact, because there's a huge amount of data which is available on Google. Also, try to focus. Depending, again, we come back to almost the first question, which is what is the topic? What is it that you want to say? So this is once you come to that, then the research will also focus around that. So if, for example, I mean, the next question is about my book, and for Muhammad Zahid, and Jazakallah for calling it a brilliant book. It is one of my favorite books of all the books that I've written. Leadership Lessons from the Life of Rasulullah. So, in the question of writing, of research, the clearer you are about your topic. So if you're looking at, say, for example, the seerah, it's a huge topic. But in the seerah, what is your specific area of focus? What do you want to do? So in leadership lessons, I focused on the leadership style of Rasulullah. What are the leadership lessons that we can derive from the major incidents of the seerah? So my research is around that. You might want to have a research, for example, on the karamat of or mu'jizat of Rasulullah. What can we learn from that? You might have a research in terms of Rasulullah. What kind of business did he do before he? Because after he got Nabuwwat, he didn't do any business. But before that, so depending on what part of the seerah you are looking at, you would do research, and this applies across the board to anything else that you want. How can we employ Rasulullah's trait of Jamamiul Kalim, concise speech in our writings? Well, yes and no, because one of the things is, yes, you can do that, but you are going to have a very short book. So you might want to, I'm not saying write uselessly or write unnecessarily or make your writing unnecessarily verbose, but at the same time, it is not necessary to make it extremely short or extremely concise. People, there is a great deal to be said in favor of detail, of color. For example, if you are talking about an incident, it's important to talk about the circumstances of that time, what was happening, what was the culture of the time, what were people eating, how did they dress, what was the weather. All of this, depending, now everything doesn't have to come in the same thing, but depending on what you're writing, all of these add value to your writing. They make it interesting. It is the overall detail which makes gives the lesson and makes it interesting. If you just go write 2 sentences, do this, don't do that, then there's no book in that. There's no real writing in that. So that's a trade-off. How do we address feelings of negativity and overcome it so that we do not give up on writing projects we are working on? As I told you, if you have enough passion, all of that won't happen. If you're getting negativity and so on and so forth, sit down and ask yourself, do you really want to write this thing? Why do you want to write this? What if we do not write? So all of these things, make sure that you are doing things which you are passionate about. I absolutely strongly believe this about myself, and I've practiced this all my life with great success, which is I do not do anything that I'm not passionate about. Simple as that. It can be anything at all. If I'm not passionate about it, if my heart is not in it, I'm not only talking about writing, about anything. If my heart is not in it, I don't do it, period, simple. So if the issue of negative feelings and all doesn't arise. Negativity comes because you are dragging yourself to something, and there's no sense whatsoever in doing that. So as far as writing is concerned, if you are really feeling negative, give it a break, take a break for a couple of days, and then sit and reflect and say, do I really want to do that? If the answer is yes, then forget about the negativity, just go do it. If the answer is no, really, I don't have my heart in it, then forget about it, don't do it. Allah is not going to ask you that question on the Day of Judgment, why did you not write a book? So forget about it. But do only that which you are positive about. Now, if I have written a book, how do I publish it? Send it to a publisher. Well, today there is, you have 2 choices. One is, of course, send it to a regular publisher. who is, many of the mainstream publishers. You might find in publishers also there are depends on the book. First of all, if you've written a technical book, don't send it to a publisher who publishes Robert Ludlum or something, because they don't do that kind of book. So you will have to go to a publisher who publishes books of the kind that you have written. So it's a technical issue. If you have written a book which is for general readership, then you can go to a general readership publisher. But today, one of the most successful things that is happening is self-publishing, which Amazon does it, and there are several other sites who do it. I'm going to request Azhar to send you the links for that. I'm sure many of you know what they are as well, where you can publish your own work. Now, the important thing is that if you go to a publisher, first of all, a couple of things that happen. First of all, if you go to a publisher, then the publisher takes care of the editing, but never go to a publisher with an unedited work. So do your own editing first. Get yourself an editor, do the editing. After that, send it to the publisher. But the publisher probably will edit it anyway. And then they take responsibility for the sale of the book and so on. Usually, if you are lucky, you will get 10% of the sale price as royalty. And the publisher takes 90%. Usually, and in most cases, if you are a first-time author, they might take more than 90%. You really have no choice, because if you want them to publish the book, then you have to accept whatever royalty they give you. The upside of that is that then they are responsible for the marketing and sale of your book. If you self-publish, then you get much more royalty. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think Amazon, which has
70.
Yeah, Amazon, which has its self-publishing branch called CreateSpace, gives you 30% royalty, right?
You can take 70.
Or you can take 70 and give them 30. So that's okay. That's a nice thing. So they give you 70% of the sale price, and they take 30%. The second benefit of self-publishing is that you are not landed with a certain number of books, as part of one printout. The publisher, of course, does that, and they keep the stock and so on. But I'm saying in self-publishing, the benefit is that once your book is uploaded for self-publishing, if I want to buy one copy, then that one copy is printed for me by the publisher, and I get that one copy, and that's it. So it's very cost-effective, and it's a very, very useful option that authors have today of self-publishing. So I would strongly recommend that you should try that out. But as I said, be very clear. The publisher there is really only doing the mechanics of it. He is formatting the book, and actually they give you the formatting parameters. So it's they don't even format it. They tell you it must fit this parameter. So you are doing the formatting yourself. And after that, all they really do is they print it out and send it out and ship it to whoever wants it. The benefit of Amazon is that you are now listed globally, so anyone in the world can order your book, and it's available on the Amazon website. So you have very good visibility. But also, what happens is that if you have uploaded a book which is lousy, which is full of grammatical mistakes, full of spelling mistakes, and so on, all of that is going to get published as it is. There is no one who's going to correct you. There's no one who's going to help you. There's no one who's going to check all that and say, I'm making these corrections. You've written something in this way. Would you like to reconsider it? All of this conversation is not going to happen. That happens only and only with a mainstream publisher, because they assign an editor to you, and the editor will do that for you. But other than that, self-publishing, you are entirely on your own. So do remember that. So if you are going to put up a book which is badly written, then you pay for it. I mean, obviously it won't sell, and also gives you bad publicity. The other side of a global presence is that if you put up lousy books, then you are going to get a lousy name. And then after that, you write a good book and put it up there. People won't even bother to read it, because they have already classed you as somebody who can't really write. So be very clear about that. But definitely, self-publishing is an option. Should you take royalty from this? That is entirely your call. my thing is that I do not take any royalty for any Islamic books, but that's my principle in life. But other books, business books, story books, and whatnot, I take a royalty, and I don't see any reason why you shouldn't take it. So that's really your call of what you want to do. What would be the best process? How do we go about it in terms of, okay, I think I've answered that already. Muhammad Zahid, how do you read a book to gain and make the most out of it? I'm going to send you a very nice video on how to read of Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, and I think that is something that you should really sit down and listen to that in detail. I think it's about 2 hours, and that would be 2 very good hours of your life that you spend in learning how to read. Rasha Abdul Razak, how can we motivate others or ourselves to read more? You cannot motivate anybody. And I'm speaking to you now from as a psychologist. That is the conclusion of enormous amount of research, that you cannot motivate anyone to do anything. What you can do is provide resources for motivated people to use and make the most of. So I think that is what you should focus on. Provide books, keep books there available. If it is children, give them books and so on and so forth, and they will inshallah be motivated and they will read. But if there's someone who does not really want to read, then there is really nothing you can do. As far as yourself is concerned, I don't think, I hope you don't fit into that, but I think that is important to remember. Next question, Muhammad Zahid, how fine is the line between writing to reach out to the people and hypocrisy, as sometimes we may not do what we write about? No, I mean, why must you do what you write about? It's depending on what you are doing. There's no hypocrisy involved. For example, I have written a book on hiring called Hiring Winners. I have hired many people in my life, but if you ask me right now, are you hiring? I'm not hiring. So my book is not hypocrisy. And I'm telling you how you should hire, because I did that at one point in time in my life, and these are my learnings about how you should hire. So it's not a question of hypocrisy. And just because you don't do something, it doesn't mean that you should not write about how to do it. I'm not saying, I'm not talking about salah and stuff like that, but I'm saying generally speaking, I don't think there is you need to get yourself into a bind about that. Muhammad Zahid, could you please address plagiarism in Islam with regard to writing? Plagiarism, I think, is one of the greatest benefits that we have in Islam. It's a wonderful thing to steal somebody else's work. Whenever people steal my work, I make sajda of thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because on the day of judgment, I shall be standing there and waiting to collect. It's as simple as that. Plagiarism is haram. It is stealing. It is like stealing anything else. And if somebody steals my words, if somebody steals my book, if somebody steals my phrases, my quotes, and so on and so forth, then I don't even bother about suing them or anything like this, even though I can, because I have no time to waste. I know Allah knows what they have stolen. And alhamdulillah, I can do with somebody else's good deeds, which I get free of cost when I stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I tell people very clearly, you want to steal my stuff, most welcome, please go ahead. And remember that I shall be waiting for you before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment. As simple as that. Paraphrasing others' works, claiming it to be yours is exactly the same. It is lousy, it is shameful, it is stealing, it is despicable, it is deplorable. It indicates a complete lack of honor, and it is, alhamdulillah, for the person whose work was stolen. It is excellent, brilliant, good news. Tell them, please do some more of that, because I can do with some more of your good deeds. And if you don't worry about doing good deeds, actually, because it doesn't matter if you are not doing any good deeds, then I will unload my bad deeds on you. And so therefore, either way, it is wonderful. Sadly, Muslims do quite a lot of that, and so I think your question is very valid. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from ourselves. What kind of books do you advise youngsters of today to read? I think very important. First of all, to get the habit of reading, read anything. Whatever comes before you, read it. Second thing is that in the long run, it is very important to read the classics. So read in whichever language you read. And don't worry about whether the writer is a Muslim or a non-Muslim. Makes no difference. There are many wonderful things written by people who are not Muslim. That doesn't take away from the wisdom or the goodness of what they write. So read the classics. Read all the different great writers of history. I also advise people to read biographies, because biographies are real stories of real people. And to the extent possible, of course, when a story is written, there might be some coloring in it from the writer, who might be the author, who might be the person himself or herself, or it might be a biographer. But biographies are a wonderful way of learning good lessons in life, which you can apply to yourself, as well as they are very interesting. So read biographies. Read also, I love to read two things. One is science fiction, because a lot of science fiction is really looking at futuristic view of the world. Many things that have been written, which were science fiction at some time, at the time they were written, today they are true, and we have even gone ahead of that. So that's one very interesting thing to read. Another thing is, I like to read fantasies. One of my absolutely all-time favorites is Lord of the Rings of J.R.R. Tolkien. I've always said that there are two kinds of people in the world: those who have read Lord of the Rings and those who haven't read Lord of the Rings. So it's pure fantasy. But Lord of the Rings, for example, even though it's just fantasy, it is a very, very good book to understand global politics today in terms of what is happening in the world. So that's a wonderful way of learning and seeing how trends and so on. Then, of course, read, once you get into reading, I like to read a lot of historical fiction, books which are based on historical events, but which are written in a story style. Con Eagledon is a fantastic writer. William Dalrymple is a fantastic writer. John Mann is a great writer. His book, John Mann's book on Genghis Khan, and his book on Sultan Salahuddin Ayyubi, absolutely brilliant reading. Historical. Now, John Mann is not historical fiction; it is history, but written very nicely. So it's very interesting. But Con Eagledon and William Dalrymple are they are not again fiction as in pure imagination. They are not. They are historical books, historically correct, but they put it together in such a way that it is very interesting to read. So it gives you knowledge as well as it's interesting. I am very focused on knowledge. I'm very focused on lessons that I can learn. But that's my personal orientation. But you don't have to do that. But just read, whatever seems to be interesting. The important thing is, while reading, I'm talking to you as writers. While reading, read the story, but also focus and pay attention to how this story was put together. The same message, the same insert, the same thing that the writer is saying. The writer, he or she is saying it in a way which is appealing to you. So ask yourself, what makes this appealing? How did this person use words? What was this person's sentence construction like? What is the color to the story that this person has added, which makes this story interesting? So pay attention to the writing style. That's very important. P.G. Wodehouse, for example, is one of my favorite writers. It's all fiction, but it's set in England in the period between World War I and World War II. He writes about the British upper class, the landed gentry, as it were, and gives a very interesting and very extremely humorous account of the times, of the culture. Bertie Wooster is the main hero in that, and his butler Jeeves is the guy with the wisdom. So it can be, you can read all kinds of things and get a lot of value from that. Samira Hamid, while being given the task of translating someone's book to another language, how do we get the maximum feel of the original work in the translated work? Try to keep yourself out of the translated work as much as possible. This is one of the big problems of translators. It ends up being the translator's book, and obviously the author is not pleased. So don't do that. Make sure that you are you're writing the book just like the author said it. Keep yourself out of it. Don't write your interpretation. Don't write your opinion. Word-for-word translation is the best, but sometimes just word-for-word translation doesn't work, obviously, because of the language issues. So in that case, write it in a way which makes sense in the new language without adding your own element to it. I think that is very important to do. How do you structure your writings so you can get the best message across to the readers in the best manner? Again, clarity with regard to topic. What is the message? What is the message? If you are clear about that, then your structure will come by itself. Second thing is that the message, for example, if your message is with regard to, are you informing? So one is, are you informing? Second one is, are you expecting any behavior change or anything? You're expecting the people to do something about what you're saying. It's not just pure information, it is something else. So then if it is pure informing, then you are informing. If it is action that must come out of that information, then you will have to also look at the steps to do what you want them to do. What are the things that they would need to be able to do in advance? So I think this is important, and that will give you overall structure of your writings. In this also comes to say where, how much of color do you need to add, how much of context do you need to add, and so on. All of that is part of the structure. Rasha Abdul Razak, how do we deal with elders saying read Quran, Sunnah, not these kafir fiction books? Well, obviously read Quran and Sunnah, nothing wrong with that. And then there is no need to tell your elders everything that you read. So, go sit under your bed and cover yourself with a blanket and then read the kafir fiction books. There is no book, in my view, there is absolutely no book that you should not read, within quotes. I have read, I've obviously read the Bible and so on, but I have also read the Mahabharata 3 times. I have read the Gita, because Gita is part of the Mahabharata. And believe me, I've learned a lot of lessons applicable in my life and in the lives of others, which has been very helpful when I'm speaking to Hindu audiences. It makes a huge difference if you speak from what they have. Not as speaking out pieces of their books and then showing them how they are wrong or something like that, but speaking with respect and showing how lessons can be learned in their lives from their books. Also, for example, it gives you a great, if you read Iliad, for example, gives you a great picture of Greek culture. If you read the Mahabharata, it gives you a great picture of the Ramayana, for example. If you read gives you a great picture of Hindu culture, of ancient Indian culture. All of these things, there's no book that you should not read. Read every single book. I'm not obviously, I don't mean morally bad stuff, but any kind of thing, fiction, non-fiction, history, just read them. It only adds value. Muhammad Zahid, if you had to suggest one fictional and one non-fictional book to someone, what would they be? I suggested the fictional book, Lord of the Rings. Non-fictional book, Leadership Lessons from the Life of Rasulullah. Another one I already suggested, I think Azhar would have sent you 2 books, which is
Outliers.
Yeah, Outliers and Talent is Overrated. Both of them are fantastic non-fiction books to read. Samir Hamid, why should one write? Well, one shouldn't write. Why should I write? That would be the right way of asking that question. And the answer to that question is, you ask that question to yourself. I cannot tell you why you should write. Why should one write? I don't see any reason why you should write. The one reason I would say that, as general rule, I would say write, is because writing clarifies thought. At least it does for me. So even if I'm not always writing, thinking about a book, I write down to clarify my thought. For example, I write down every one of my Jummah khutbahs. The benefit of that is that it clarifies my thought. It puts everything in a structured manner. And then at the end of the day, these khutbahs, they get published as books. We have already published 3 books of 52 khutbahs each. The 4th book is in the process, inshallah. That will get done in a month or 2. So this is the benefit of writing. But if you don't want to write, I mean, that's obviously there is a choice. So I think it's very important that writing, how does it help? It helps by structuring your thoughts. Mama Zaid, it is said that writers have a silent space where they gather their thoughts or clear their head. How do you clear or declutter your mind? Well, I don't know. I mean, I think you should ask the one who said this. I do not have silent spaces. All my mind is working. And I sit and reflect and I focus on what I want to write, and then I go about it. What I do when I find it useful is that once I have that topic in my head, once I have my goal of writing in my head, I live with it, I sleep with it, I wake up with it, my mind is constantly working around it. And as that happens, I make notes. So I write down wherever, either by hand or on the computer or on on my phone or something, just random thoughts that come, and then I put them together. So that is that helps in terms of decluttering. Sajid Hamid, can you suggest some ways for people who tend to forget to read in such a way that you learn and remember? Biographies like books like biographies, Islamic history. Okay, we'll come to that. Now, Azhar has already sent you the link to Sheikh Hamza Yusuf's lecture. Please listen to that. And then, very, very simple, take notes. The best way to ensure that you don't forget is to take notes. Two kinds of notes. One is exactly what you want to remember. And second one is, I read this, this is what I understood. So that's the second way of writing notes, is to write your understanding of what you read. Take notes. That's the best thing to do to prevent forgetfulness. Books like biographies in Islamic history, could you ask Sheikh to speak a bit about the importance and need of tarbiyah and niyyah? Oh, that is a whole lecture by itself. I'm going to ask Azhar to send you my lectures on tarbiyah and niyyah. I think there are several of them. Please listen to them. In short, innamal a'malu bin-niyyat, keep that in your mind. Whatever you're writing, you're doing, write for the sake of the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, write to cause benefit and to benefit the people, the readers, and then of course write to please yourself. There's nothing wrong in being happy, there's nothing wrong in writing something which pleases you in a way that pleases you, so go ahead and do that. There's no problem with that. So that is as far as the niyyah is concerned. And tarbiyah is important because tarbiyah, especially with regard to discipline, I think that is very, very important. Somebody asked Alex Haley, I think it was, they said, how do you write? He said, I write by writing. He said, I get up every morning, I sit in front of my typewriter. In those days, there were typewriters. And I start typing, and I keep on typing, and I keep on typing. Maybe what I type I like, I don't like, I throw it away, I type some more. So I think this issue of tarbiyah with regard to writing consists of the discipline of writing. If you want to be considered, if you consider yourself to be a serious writer, and if you are not writing 3 to 4 hours a day, then you are not a serious writer. As simple as that. So make sure that you spend that much of time in writing. Now, in order to write, you need to read. And that's the second question. Samir Hamid, I'm a terrible reader. Good for you. Join the club. There are plenty of them. It's very simple. If you want to win in this world, if you want to do something worthwhile in this world, you have to read. Reading opens the doors to the treasures of knowledge that of people who have gone ahead of us, who have taken the trouble to put those things down in writing. And if you say, well, I am a terrible reader, well, what can I do? You have to change yourself and become a terrific reader, right? So some of the terrible and terrific, some of the letters are the same. All you need to do is change the last 3 letters. So make sure that you develop this issue of reading. If you're not a reader, you can't be a writer. I mean, I don't know anybody who doesn't read but who's a great writer. No way. You have to read in terms of research, in terms of general reading, and then it will happen. How to inculcate the habit of reading? Just read what you like to read first. Even if it's comics, I mean, read what you like to read first. Don't worry about remembering. Everything that you read does not need to be remembered. That's the reason I said take notes. So what is important? Take notes. Obviously, you won't forget that because you've written down the notes. And that's my idea of solving this issue, is take notes. If you're taking notes, you will not forget. And then continue to read. Sakina 81, Assalamu alaikum, Uncle Yawar. Wa alaikum assalam. How do you prioritize what to write? Sometimes I have a few ideas which I want to work on and kind of get analysis paralysis and end up doing nothing. I think you are answering your own question. Don't get into analysis paralysis. Be clear about your goal. I have said that before. Be clear about your goal, and inshallah, everything else will fall into place. Does it make sense to put together all of the articles that I've written, be it for Ink of Faith and just generally for other platforms, publish it as a book of articles? Yes, you can. But even there, what I would say is try to see if there is a theme in that. Maybe you, depending on how much you wrote, maybe there's more than one book in that. So think about a theme, and when you're putting the articles down, try to see how it flows. It should make it should be completely articles which are totally opposite or something like that. So try to see if that makes sense, and then of course you can do that. It's possible. But I have a book called what the leadership was it? What the name?
Leadership is a personal choice.
Leadership is a personal choice. Yeah, the book called Leadership is a Personal Choice, which is really a series of articles, but they all flow together. They all in one. So I think that is a legitimate thing that you could do. Rashad Razak, would you prefer Islamic writing over general writing? No, not necessarily. I mean, there's nothing. You don't have to do one or the other. Just write whatever is interesting for you. In Islamic writing, what I would suggest is that unless you are a mufti giving fatwas or something like that, stay out of issues of fiqh, stay out of issues of aqidah, and stay out of issues of where there are controversies. Write instead about issues of practice. Write about challenges that you face as a Muslim and what are your solutions for those challenges. Write about the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Write about your own experience of Islam. How do you live as a Muslim? How is that beneficial for you? Things like this, because that is something which is really appealing to people. Alhamdulillah, I think I hope this was useful, and I hope that we will see some good writing, inshallah, coming out of this. Final sum up: number one, be clear about your goal of writing. Why are you writing what you are writing? That's very important. Number two, structure that writing and say, what is the best way to put this across to the people? Who is your audience? When you got your goal, who is your audience, and what appeals to the audience? How can I structure this and put it across to the audience in the best possible way? So that's the second one. Third one is do your research. There's no such thing as too much research, so do your research. Number four is write down whatever is in your mind and then structure it thereafter. Number five, get yourself a good editor and make sure that you listen to the editor so that the final result is good. And then enjoy yourself. I mean, this is don't make writing into a burden that you have to somehow fulfill. And very, very important is the discipline. Just get up and sit down and write. Don't worry about writer's block and this. All of this is just words. Forget about all that. Just get up and write. And whatever you write, no matter whether it seems to be, whether you like it or you don't like it, just write, because that is something which is very, very useful. It gets you going, and you will find that you will be able to write. So, Jazakumullah khairan. It was nice to talk to you all, and I hope you have some wonderful writing experiences as a result of that. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.